And Mrs. Ples lives, or lived, in the Sterkfontein cave area of South Africa, not far from the big city of Johannesburg. Probably dated at well over 2 million years before the present. The skull is in good shape. Imagine lasting a few million years without being stepped on by an elephant or being turned into a lamp-based by somebody. This is quite an achievement. When you look at the skull base of Mrs. Ples, you'll find that the bottom of the skull is very flat. And it looks very much like that of a chimpanzee or a gorilla or a monkey. When we would reconstruct the throat region of Mrs. Ples, based upon our knowledge of anatomy, we would reconstruct the throat region to look very much like that of an ape or a monkey, with the voice box all the way up in the throat. Let me show you briefly what we believe this looks like. This is a reconstruction of what we believe Mrs. Ples may have looked like when she lived over 2 million years ago. What we did was to use the principles of anatomy that I've spoken about to reconstruct what the individual's throat region may have looked like. And what we believe is that the throat region, based on the shape of the skull, would be very high up in the throat, much as you find in living monkeys and apes. And also, the high position of the larynx would limit the amount of sounds that they could make compared to you and me. They certainly made a lot of sounds. They were higher primates. They certainly would have vocal capabilities as much as, if not more, than living monkeys and apes. And certainly they would have thought processes, at least at that level, if not even greater. But were they us? Not by a long shot. They couldn't make the sounds that we can today. Their vocal tract would have been very different. So our earliest ancestors clearly could not speak the way we do today.
The development of speech took place over hundreds of thousands of years when the shape of the skull and the throat region gradually changed. But when?
If Homo erectus or Homo ergaster did not have an anatomy like ours, when did we get to be we? When did the throat regions of our ancestors come into play? It was not until specimens that came a bit later. A specimen such as this. This is a beautiful skull, this is a cast, of a specimen known as Kabwe. It was formerly called Rhodesian man, from an area that was formerly called Rhodesia and is now known as Zambia. The skull is big and bulky, but very human-like in important anatomical features. When you look at the bottom of the skull, you would find that the bending or flexing of the skull base looks indistinguishable from that of modern-day humans. This specimen is put by many into a group known as Homo heidelbergensis. This was an individual that probably lived about 200,000 years before the present, and so looks very much like an adult modern human when you look at the bottom of the skull. And I would reconstruct this specimen looking very much, as far as its throat region was concerned, very much like you and me.
The saga of prehistoric man will continue in Part 2, Human Evolution in the Lower Paleolithic Age, with the emergence of modern man's closest relatives and the movement out of Africa into the Middle East, Europe, and Asia.